Hey everyone, welcome to New Slang. I'm Thomas Mooney, and you're listening to episode number 82, where I am joined by singer-songwriter Hailey Whitters. We spoke on the phone for about an hour last week while she was enjoying the pleasant weather in her backyard in Nashville. Hailey released her second full-length album this past February. It's called The Dream, and I know this probably doesn't sound like the compliment that I 100% mean it to be, but for this entire, part of this new year, it's kind of been my go-to album that I put on when I'm just not really sure what else to listen to. It's been this and Katie Pruitt's Expectations. I just have really loved both of these records. The Dream is just this incredible showcase of Hailey's talents as a performer, artist, and songwriter. While there's definitely this diverse blend of songs on here, she maintains to pull that connective string throughout in both style, mood, and in general theme. There are these incredibly intimate ballads on here like The Faker, Janice at the Hotel Bar, and Living for the Dream. They're incredibly revealing. She lets her guard down in a lot of ways in these moments. You just feel the vulnerability in her voice. And then on the other side, there are these super huge powerhouse country pop numbers like Dream Girl, Heartland, and All the Cool Girls. People always kind of think of pop as a quote-unquote dirty word, but no one really should think about it that way. You know, having pop sensibility is an incredibly important thing as an artist, and Hailey just knows her strengths really well, and just these songs have just these sugary sweet kind of choruses that just become pleasant earworms. I've found myself just humming along to them even though they're not on. One of the things I really like about Hailey's writing is that she's really gifted at finding these clever hooks and these new takes on familiar phrases. Just even in the title, you can tell there's Dream Girl and Heartland that really do that. But what I really love about Hailey's writing on this record is just how realistic and honest it really is. Well, we come up on these moments in our lives where we can just easily become jaded because things aren't working out the way that we kind of originally envisioned them going. Hailey has undoubtedly gone through her fair share of letdowns. You know, just listen to the song 10-Year Town. It's about those hardships of trying to make it into the music business, specifically in Nashville. But, you know, in life, I feel you're always going to end up hitting these roadblocks, and it's you trying to figure out how to get around them. So there is that universal appeal in that song. It just kind of applies to anything in life. What I think is really important and kind of just essential to 10-Year Town is how she's optimistic despite the struggles. There's always a little bit of this light at the end of the tunnel. You kind of get the sense that Hailey's even trying to remind herself to not give up on her dreams, that it's okay to have dreams, and it's okay to let those dreams morph and shift over time. You know, because Hailey's not turned into this giant country music star since moving into Nashville, but she has carved out her own spot, and that's something. She's turned into this rising songwriter with just a growing catalog of songs and co-writes with a bunch of veteran songwriters, and she's obviously a budding artist in her own right. The Dream is really about that journey of that hard work, those ups and downs, the setbacks and the breaks, and the luck that's all involved. What she does on this record is kind of give us a little bit of insight on all of those aspects. She balances it by having the youthful optimism and experienced realist. You know, there's a lot of both sides of that coin on The Dream. I highly encourage you to go check out The Dream. If you haven't already, go buy it. Go buy some t-shirts, you know. Everyone's obviously not touring at the moment, so go buy merch from your favorite songwriters in general. But if you haven't checked out The Dream by Hailey Whitters, obviously go do so. Listen to the rest of this podcast as well. Okay, so something happened the other day that's really relevant for the times. My friend Charlie Stout, he called me up and he had this idea. I guess I should backtrack. If you don't know Charlie, he's a Lubbock songwriter and photographer. You've probably seen some of his work. and you probably have heard some of his songs over the years. Obviously, this pandemic has affected just about every person in the world by now. In our world, it's meant all of these musicians and artists just stomping on the brakes and just putting a pause on live music. Bars and venues have shut down, and tours and shows have just, stopped right in their place. Canceled, postponed, all that kind of stuff. And as you've probably seen, people have just adapted to living like this. Songwriters have been playing their shows in their living rooms on Instagram and on Facebook for nearly 2 months now. They've survived on these virtual shows with Venmo and PayPal tips. But there is this group of people who haven't had the same ability to do the same thing as these songwriters, even though they've been just as affected. And that's bar staff, bartenders and bar backs and door guys and sound engineers and everyone involved within the music business when it comes to the live performance aspects. They have all been halted as well. They're not able to virtually get you a beer. So Charlie called me and he had this idea about how can we do something for our friends who work at our beloved Blue Light here in Lubbock. They've taken care of us all over the years, They've undoubtedly have taken care of every songwriter and band who have graced that stage and walked through those doors on a nightly basis, Monday through Saturday, often sometimes on Sundays. So we brainstormed and threw out a few ideas, and the one that made the most sense was a compilation of songs recorded by 50 songwriters with Blue Light and Lubbock ties. 50 artists who kind of paid their dues on that stage. So much of the cultural significance when it comes to Blue Light, it revolves around Monday nights. That's songwriter night. It's songwriters breaking in original material with just their acoustic guitar and vocals, and that stage really has been a testing ground for so many songwriters that you know and love. So with that in mind, Charlie and we contacted 50 songwriters, technically 49 since Charlie does contribute a song here himself, and we saw if they wanted to send in a song that was in a quote-unquote demo or work style type of cut. I can't really take like 50-50 credit with this one or anything like that. Charlie has undoubtedly done a whole lot of the heavy lifting, but I've helped out in my own way of helping contact people and getting things organized and whatnot. Just having that blank whiteboard of ideas. So after a week or so of organizing all this, we present Monday Night Lights, a 50-song compilation featuring 50 Blue Light songwriters for a convenient price of $50. Just think of it as like a weekend bar tab that you haven't paid in a minute. I'll post a track list link as well here with this episode, since it's just not really probably good podcasting for me to just read 50 names here. But I'll say that it's a really nice mix of old school Lubbock Blue Light guys like Josh Abbott and Wade Bowen and William Clark Green, and there's like that middle ground of artists like Ross Cooper and Cleto Cordero of Flatland Cavalry and Dalton Domino. You have your mix of Blue Light singer-songwriter competition winners like Juliet McConkey and Isaac Hoskins, Zach Wilkerson and Kenneth O'Meara, the first Blue Light songwriter winner. And then, of course, there's a good dose of young up-and-comers who are still cutting their teeth on Monday nights. People like Slade Coulter and Morgan Rutherford, Darby Sparkman and Pecos Hurley of Pecos and the Rooftops. And, of course, there's a lot of the usual suspects mixed in. So all the proceeds of this record, they go straight to the Blue Light staff. Those bartenders who serve you, those bar backs who pick up after you, the door guys who greet you up at the front, the sound guys who make sure your favorite bands are sounding right. Those basically who make the wheels go round at Blue Light. Monday Night Lights will go live this Friday, May 1st. I'll be throwing a link on all social media platforms once things are finalized, but I wanted y'all to get ready for this as soon as possible so you'd have it in mind. As always, follow me, Thomas Mooney, on Twitter at _newslang. Do so on Instagram as well. If you want, you can go give us a like on Facebook at Newslang. Of course, subscribe on iTunes, give a 5-star rating. It really does help. Okay, I think that just about wraps it up. Here is the interview with Hailey Whitters. Yeah, so I guess like we have to start with just the obvious. You know, you released this record right before a pandemic.
Hmm.
You know, you had all these tour dates and everything lined up to support this record. All of a
Hmm.
sudden, this happens. Like, what was like the initial thing that kind of went through your mind as far as how this record was going to be affected by the lack of touring and the pandemic and etc.
Probably, you know, worry. I wouldn't say I went into like full blown panic mode because I know like, you know, at the end of the day, this is not a major problem compared to what a lot of other people are facing. But it is still very scary to like, I felt like we had built up to this place where, we had this amazing year and rollout kind of plan for this record. And then it all got kind of either canceled or postponed. And so it does feel a little scary just to, you wonder, like, am I going to lose momentum? Are people going to stop talking about it? And I do feel lucky because I feel like, we were able to get it out before all of this started. And, you know, it seems people are still listening and, maybe even listening more if, because everyone has some downtime. So I think, I try and remain optimistic and, it's out of my control. Um, but I do think, I think that, I am lucky in the way that, people are still listening, it appears. And, we just got to keep moving forward. So, um, yeah, it is a little scary though.
Yeah, it. I can imagine it's one of those things too where you feel like you, in a lot of ways, push your chips in, and then all of a sudden it's like
Yeah.
everyone tells you, "Oh, we have to pause for a period of time."
Yeah. Yeah, it is a pretty scary thing. And, I'm glad that we were able to get this out before. And it could be a lot worse, I think. So,
Hmm.
I'm glad that it's out there and people are able to kind of dive in. And some people are making it their quarantine record, which has been kind of nice. But just doing the best you can, I guess.
Yeah. So obviously, social distancing, staying inside, and all this stuff. Is that like in a way? Does that make you focus a little bit more on songwriting? Is this even like a climate for songwriting and or what? I guess like what's your kind of your how is that affected on that front?
Yeah, actually, I feel like I'm writing more during quarantine than when I'm not in quarantine. The Music Row kind of just approach everyone's doing right now is they're using Zoom or FaceTime to co-write. And it was a little weird at first, and it's still kind of weird if you're like writing with somebody new, but you know, now everyone's just it's kind of the new norm. And so I log on to Zoom like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a week and co-write with people. And so it's been really fruitful and we're getting a lot of songs. And I can tend to be like very much an introvert and a homebody. So for me, once I kind of got over, and I still have like, my moments of like anxiety or stress or whatever, but um, once I can kind of like quiet that and just accept the situation, like I really kind of thrive, I feel like at home, just downtime to, read or be writing songs. I've been listening to so many records right now, starting to dabble in like painting and, going full Midwest mom over here with the arts and crafts. But, it's just like trying to use this time to really get creative and kind of indulge in all of those outlets that I don't really have a lot of time to do when I'm touring full time or working a record. So I mean, it's been kind of nice, like I feel lucky that I'm safe and everyone I know is safe and healthy so far. And like, I'm just trying to use this time to kind of um, shut the world out, I guess, and like go to the well and try and find some inspiration and be creating.
Right. Yeah. I tend to be an introvert as well.
Yeah.
I have like one little brother, but he's 14 years younger than me. So
Yeah.
I've kind of jokingly said that, being a single child most of my life has just like shaped me and made me perfect for this situation. Cause I'm just like
Hmm.
fine at home. But,
Yeah.
you know, I think the eye opening aspect has been realizing just how many of my friends are the exact opposite and they need
Right.
that interaction. And it's just, I guess it's so easy to fall into not doing anything though. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's, that's what I've had to figure out is like, obviously just, I don't know, just like going into more, I guess, ideas and focusing in on
Yeah.
stuff, you mentioned painting. I've always been
Yeah.
interested in how, I guess like one of the things about songwriters is, you know, deep down it's an artistic outlet.
Uh-huh.
And I guess those other channels of where that creativity goes. Have you always
Hmm.
kind of been a painter? Have you always kind of done stuff like that in the outside of songwriting?
No, so I'm not a great painter. Like my grandma used to paint a lot, and so I think that's where I've gotten this like interest for it, curiosity for it, and
Hmm.
um, now that I have the time, I've been like sitting down and going for it, and it's like, I mean, it can be rough, but it's fun and it's nice to see yourself like get better at
Hmm.
something, creative. I took like a painting class last year actually, and it's really interesting because um I was a total beginner and like there were I think 8 of us in the class and everyone else was really good. And so it was the first time like I had felt that creatively vulnerable in a long time.
Hmm.
And it's so easy. Like my mind instantly was like, how the fuck do I get out of this class? Like I have to get out of here. I started sweating. I was like, I don't want people to see my work. Like I was just totally panicking. And it's just because I felt so exposed because here I am like picking up this new creative, outlet and I just have no business being here. But I pushed through and it was just like a good reminder that you're not going to be great and, you should do it anyways. And so it's a process, but I wish I were great. I admire people and, maybe someday I'll have something that I'm proud enough to put on my wall or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I imagine it. It scratches a different part of your brain, makes you
It does.
have you. I mean, I don't even know if this is really a thing, but have you like been inspired to write anything while you've been painting, or like what you've painted? Has that sparked an idea or anything like that?
So it's interesting. I'm really fascinated with Grant Wood right now. He actually, so he's the, I'm, people probably know who he is, but for anyone who doesn't, um, he's like, he was a huge regionalist painter in, 30s, 40s, all that. And he painted the American Gothic painting, the pitchfork painting,
Mm-hmm.
very popular. But he grew up in my hometown. He grew up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And so I've become very fascinated with him, especially lately. Like I remember being a kid and everything in our town was like Grant Wood, Grant Wood. And I was like, who's Grant Wood? But now I've just kind of become fascinated with him and his painting and especially like being from there and being from the heartland. Like he painted a bunch of, Midwest, his paintings were very like Midwestern and he would paint farms and just all these things. So um, he's inspired a lot of writing for me and honest like maybe a record concept somewhere down the line
Oh yeah.
because there's just so much about him and what he did and how he was perceived, and what he was painting about, that has inspired a lot of songs for me. So I've been painting things, um, you know, thematically that fit in with what he did, and I feel like I'm not describing this well, but like just painting things that are inspired by him, or trying to recreate paintings that he did, and just like putting them on this wall in my house that's kind of turning into like my American Gothic wall. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, also, I'm very fascinated with the heartland and where I come from. So it is this weird thing where like painting and writing music is like colliding. I'm just really fascinated by him and what he was painting about. And so, um, yeah, it's kind of become like my little um, American Gothic space, I guess.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've always been fascinated by I think like with everyone really, if you wherever you kind of grew up, if you stayed there for a
Mm-hmm.
long time, you never
Mm-hmm.
fully appreciate it as a kid, and it takes
Uh-huh.
getting far away to realize, who these important people were in your hometown or in your region, or what was so special about it. And then you end up like just appreciating it so much more, and then kind of like digging back through and kind of getting obsessive about it. Because I feel the same way
Yeah.
about like where I come from. You know,
Where are you from?
I'm from Fort Stockton, Texas, which is
Okay.
in the middle of nowhere in West Texas, like
Okay.
kind of like north of the Big Bend area.
Mm-hmm.
So like just small town on the interstate, but like
Cool.
nothing really out there. But growing up there, I never really probably appreciated the beauty of the landscape, and just like the
Mm-hmm.
just like no one being out there. It's in a lot of ways still really untouched.
Yeah, yeah, that is so interesting. And I guess we just, exactly what you said, like we just kind of appreciate where we come from a little more as we get older. And, I feel like, especially for me, like I probably tend to romanticize it a lot because I'm
Hmm.
not there anymore, but it is such a fond place for me. And like, I'm very inspired by it and the way of life back there, both the positive and negative. Um, but yeah, that is an interesting thing. I don't know why we do that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, you can hear that obviously on this record of yours right here of the
yeah,
it's interesting you say romanticize, because like I feel if there's anything with nostalgia, it's just the romanticizing of
hmm,
old things, right? The rose-colored
uh
glasses
huh,
aspects, because it's like I would never like move back to Fort Stockton, but I
yeah,
love talking about Fort Stockton.
yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, so like this record, one of my favorite things about it has been I guess what I've kind of described as like this balance of a record. At
Hmm.
times you're very jaded and broken by the quote unquote system of Nashville, and kind of
Hmm.
like that the dreams being crushed. But
Hmm.
there's also like that optimism in there, and it feels like you're always still betting on yourself.
Hmm.
How, I guess, like obviously 10-Year Town is the epitome of all that.
Hmm.
How many people came up after that song was released that were in the same position as you that you didn't realize, or like I guess like as far as like the songwriters of Nashville and the artists, what do you was there a lot of people who came up to you and just kind of was like, wow, that's I felt that.
Yeah, I think especially the artists and writers and industry folk came forward with that song just because I think it was very, when I was throwing that idea out to co-writers, a lot of people were like, you know, either I already have a song that's that, or that's just so specific to Nashville. So I think it was very much like kind of the Nashville story and just the journey of like, an artist trying to make it.
Hmm.
One person in particular that reached out was John Osborne from Brothers Osborne. and I never met John, but he messaged me. I think Lucy, his wife, had played him the song, and he messaged me on Instagram and was like, Hailey, like, I've been in that spot. I know exactly how you feel. Like, I had to sell guitars. I was selling weed for a while, just anything I could to pay the bills and keep it going, and just keep going. Good things are coming your way. Don't ever give up. And I thought that was really cool and really sweet. And it's cool to see people who have gone on to have success, um, you know, acknowledge and share their stories of being in that same place.
Right.
I just think it is such like a shared experience. And surprisingly, like, even people outside of the industry, like, I had a florist reach out to me and be like, I sell flowers, but that song seriously resonates with me. And I think that's really cool, because I think we've all had that moment in our lives where we're like, what am I doing with my life?
Right.
And I think that's on a broader sense what that song is really about.
Yeah. It feels like that, like that's the kind of song that we need like every 15 years or something like that, the
Totally.
just as like a reminder of sorts, at least, or at least like maybe like that song for every half generation or something,
Yeah.
because you do feel, if you haven't felt this, I'm sure, it's one of those things where, you have a trust fund or something, but,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I feel like everyone, when they leave high school, has that I'm going to tackle the world.
Right.
And then you realize there's so many different levels of success.
Mm-hmm.
Has I guess like the definition of success changed for you over the years? What you
Absolutely. Like,
consider?
I think that like 10-Year Town was like the turning of that page a little bit for me. It was like, up until that point, I felt like I had just based success off of, a certain sort of industry standard.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was, shortly after I wrote 10-Year Town, it was like a switch kind of went off, where I just, honestly, it's really strange, but I thought I was dying for some reason. I had this like premonition that I felt like I was going to die in a year. And so I started treating my time and my decisions and where I was spending my energy. I started to think like, okay, if this is my last year, or if I only have limited time, is this that important to me? And it just became really clear, like, what was and wasn't really that important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that my idea of success changed in that way. And I had kind of given up on my dream, my Nashville dream. I kind of got to a point where I was like, listen, you've spent this long, these many years chasing this one thing, and you need to be okay with the fact that it might never happen for you in the way that you want it to. And you need to be okay with that. And you need to make sure that you've built a great life outside of this one dream that you've been chasing. And so in that way, with that kind of realization, I think a lot of, my ideas on success changed. And I mean, as simple as it sounds, like in Janice at the hotel bar, it's like, go out and make a good living, but make sure you're living a good life. And that is like my definition of success now, I think, is it's like, it's great to have these accolades and these, awards or whatever that you can look back on someday, but like, it's the things that we're doing in the meantime and the people that we're doing them with that I feel like is kind of the bigger picture when it comes to looking at what, the key to life is, or what,
Mm-hmm.
what a successful life is.
Yeah. Did a lot of those songs kind of come all at once? Because like obviously like the Days has a lot of that same thematic feel of not counting the
Uh-huh.
days, counting the important
Uh-huh.
parts of life.
Yeah, so 10-Year Town was definitely one of the first songs I probably wrote on the record. And maybe a year later, Janice came, and then maybe 6 months after that, I wrote the Days. Um, Heartland was written pretty early on. I think that was maybe even shortly after 10-Year Town. Um, yeah, they kind of like some of those songs are 2-3 years old, and some of them are just like a year old. Some of them actually, Janice and the Days and Living the Dream, the title track, I think we wrote those like maybe a month even before we went into the studio. So those were kind of um, last minute additions to it. But I think you can see conceptually like that theme was pretty relevant in my life at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously this record has a lot of really great co-writes on it, a lot of great songwriters. Like what is it, what was like do you remember like your first official, quote unquote, official co-write when you came to Nashville? What was that like?
My first co-write ever?
Yeah, like what was like when you first kind of came in?
This is actually really funny. My first ever co-write was Kacey Musgraves.
Okay. Yeah.
So and she didn't even live here yet. I had just moved here, and we had her sister Kelly, I think, had given her like one of my CDs, and she was in Texas, and she messaged me and asked if I would be down to co-write. She was coming to Nashville, and I had never co-written, but I was like, I loved Kacey Musgraves. I'd seen her on Nashville Star, and so I didn't feel like I should turn that down. So yeah, we wrote, and I think it went terribly. Like, I had no idea how to co-write. I was so used to just only living inside my head, and to actually have to like talk through things with another person was so weird to me. But yeah, I don't even remember what our song was. I'm trying to remember what it was called. But yeah, that was my first co-write. And after that, it might have even still been a while before I co-wrote again, which is so weird because now it's something I do so regularly. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it has to be like a skill that you just kind of have to learn how to obviously work with somebody else. Anytime you add another person into the mix, it becomes a little bit more complicated in any kind of job that you're kind of doing.
Yep.
So like beforehand, you were, I guess like every songwriter starts out writing songs by themselves. What were those kind of songs like? Were they still influenced by the Heartland aspects, or what were those like? I guess those early Hailey Whitters songs were like.
So like I think I started writing songs when I was like 14 or 15 years old. I mean, if you want to go way back, like elementary school, but I feel like those don't really count.
Yeah.
But I mean, high school was when I really started writing, probably. It's when I started playing guitar. And I mean, we think we have so much life experience in high school, but let's be real. So they were definitely about like high school boyfriends. I think one of the songs I had written was about how like our parents don't know anything about love, but we're 15 and we do, like really dramatic. And yeah, I've always been a writer. Like I used to write a lot of like stories and poetry and shit, and like early on. So I remember like one of my first poems or stories that I ever got, like kind of like my whatever the prize was in school at that age, was like, or the first thing I ever like got recognized for was a story that I had written, or like a poem or something that I had written about I guess challenging authority. It was like older people are telling us what to do, like they have it all figured out, but really they're still like children themselves. I don't know why I had this high and mighty like soapbox, Jesus, but yeah, I don't know. That's a pretty deep thought for someone. I was in like middle school when I wrote that. I feel like that's a pretty like big idea to already be like challenging authority. But yeah, I mean, early songs were all, teenage angst and love.
Yeah. That's funny because in a lot of ways I go, just being naive at a young age. But also at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I still know anything more at this age than I did. I don't have any kind of idea of what I'm really doing. So
Right.
maybe
Right.
you're
That's
onto
like,
something there.
yeah, totally.
But yeah, I guess like with, you know, it's one of those things where there's a reason why like punk artists are only up to like 25 years old or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Uh-huh.
because it is that teenage angst and just living off of
Yeah.
all that and authority, and your parents don't know anything. And then they become alt country artists. So
Totally. That's so true.
This episode is sponsored by the Blue Light Live and Tom's Daiquiri here in Lubbock, Texas. While we are still a while away from live shows, Tom's is offering us all a bit of normalcy by introducing curbside pickup. Starting Thursday, April 23rd, they'll be offering daiquiris, beer, and the ever so important hand sanitizer produced locally by Burn Vodka and Pinkerton Distillery. Curbside pickup at Tom's will be available Monday through Saturday from noon until 8 p.m. The best way to get your orders in is to simply call Tom's at 806-749-5442. That's 806-749-5442. Tom's is located right next to Blue Light on Buddy Holly Avenue at 1808 Buddy Holly. I'll, of course, throw all of this info into the show notes, and I'll also share a menu that will make things so much easier when ordering. It'll list prices and daiquiri flavors and additional information. And speaking of Blue Light, as you know, it's an incredibly special venue. There's something magical that happens within those walls every night. And while there's not any bands loading up on stage just yet, and there's not that buzz of excitement of a live show, there is still a way to get your dose of Blue Light magic. I'm talking about Blue Light merch. If you go visit bluelightlubbock.com, you can see their varied assortment of shirts, caps, and some really sharp white handmade leather koozies. There are numerous things that Dustin, Lance, and Derek have done right over the years, but rolling out a line of brand-defining merch has been towards the top of that list. It's never paint-by-numbers items. You never just feel like they didn't put much thought into them. They're always stylish, yet always practical, and always sport that iconic blue light flame. Head over to bluelightlubbock.com to order today. Okay, back to the show. Going back to like the co-writing stuff on this record, at some point, I guess like you have those butterflies of like, oh, I'm going to be writing with Lori McKenna or Brandy Clark. But at some point, those kind of go away. They kind of, or at least I would think. You still have to like pinch yourself every once in a while and go like, oh, I'm pretty lucky to write with these people. And
yeah, definitely. I mean, the other day I did a Zoom co-write with Lori McKenna, Hillary, Lindsay, and Brandy Clark, like all four of us. I mean, I was trying not to be a nerd, but I really wanted to take a photo of that picture because of that computer screen, because I was like, what world is this that I somehow managed to get all three of my like biggest influencers and just like artists that I just love and worship, like all on the same freaking quarantine computer screen. But I mean, yeah, you definitely do. Like, I hope that I always, have that excitement and like that feeling of, oh, I write with Lori McKenna today. I better have a really great idea for her, because, I think the minute you start to lose some of that, you're probably, might want to consider some different things, because, that's just the magic of it all. That's what makes it, so exciting.
Right. Yeah. So like, I love Lori McKenna. I think like her songwriting is just so great. I'm not going to ask you what did you learn about most from Lori McKenna, but like, what was kind of like the, when you were in a room with Lori McKenna or on a Zoom, I guess now, what were you like most surprised? Like, that's what she does, like, is there something
like she does great?
Well, no, like even just like in a practical sense, like, oh, she uses a notebook, or whatever the case is, like.
So the first time I wrote with Lori McKenna, I went up to Boston, her house, in Stoughton, Massachusetts, and we're sitting down. She has like her room in the basement that's kind of like her music room and whatever. And we're sitting down there, and like, she's just this hero. I mean, she just is here. She is at home and like so casual, so relaxed. And we're writing a song, and her like preteen son screams down the stairs and is like, "Mom, I'm hungry." And she was like, "I'll be up in a sec. I'll make you a sandwich. We're about to finish this chorus." And it was just like this. I'm just thought it was so funny because here she is, just like this queen of Nashville, so idolized. And then she's sitting here, like in her house, with a guitar in hand, one part, Grammy award winning songwriter, and other part still just like the sandwich maker for her children.
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's still mom.
It was
Yeah.
a really cool contrast. I mean, I admire that so much. I admire her so much, not only as just like, a songwriter, but also the way that she's able to balance life and mom and being a mom and, also being very successful. I think it's just super admirable. And I think that's what makes her so great is her humility in both.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I guess I did like a little interview with her probably, like 2 summers ago, about
Yeah.
her last record. And one of the things that I found so interesting about a lot of her writing is how she will use, like labels to like describe somebody, like like the
Uh-huh.
rifle, the bird, the fixer,
Yeah.
stuff like
Uh-huh.
that. I asked her about that, like why she started doing, what like gave her that inspiration and idea, and it was just like, if I remember correctly, she kind of just was like, it just makes that character, like the audience knows what that character wants,
Yeah.
right out of that. Have you tried anything like that? Has she brought any of that kind of stuff up?
I'm trying to think. I love like personifying things like that. It allows you to like look at it through a different lens.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think. I'm sure I've done that at some point. She kind of did that when they wrote The Tree too, which I love that song.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's so unique, and that's how you can really tell like she's a writer. Um, I don't think we've ever written anything like that together, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think like she's, especially like on, like I said, like on the songs where she just names a character instead of just like
Mm-hmm.
a John or a Jack or a Jill or what, you know what I mean? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that the personification of whatever they want or they do, that is,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways, it's really innovative. I don't know if there's a whole lot of, I can't really think of a lot of other examples of people doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, she's so brilliant. She's so great.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, like on this record, a lot of the more, critically acclaimed songs,
Uh-huh.
they're a lot more in the quote unquote singer songwriter ballad form. Like the
Mm-hmm.
10 Year Town, and you mentioned Janice at the Hotel Bar. Does that make you feel, a little bit more, not necessarily accomplished, but a little bit more validated in that people were taking your slower ballads, your more serious material seriously?
Yeah, I think it's like I'm really proud of those things, and it's very scary to put out, a body of work and then, leave it up to critics and hear what they're going to say. Like that's a very vulnerable feeling and
Mm-hmm.
kind of scary. And so I'm really proud of the reception and yeah, it does feel it feels a little validating to have some of these, just really esteemed publications like supporting you. That feels really great. And I think, I'm right here in the heart of Nashville and Music Row, and what Music Row does is not always what what gets praised critically, and
Right.
and I think that it's very cool to be able to do both, and I want to do both, and that's something that I don't want to lose when I'm creating, because I think, just the music I tend to listen to is probably not necessarily country radio. And so, but I work in country radio and I'm seeing both sides. And so I want to be able to, you know, have music that is commercially accessible, but also be introducing thoughts and ideas that maybe stem a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and really, I don't think what I'm doing is anything too off from the music and the country music that I was brought up on. And I don't want to try and be, anything other than that. I grew up listening to a lot of story songs. And I mean, we were just talking the other day, like Red Rag Top, which, was a hit for Tim McGraw, and
Right.
it's about abortion. Or, you know, um, Alan Jackson, Remember When, like, we were talking about Dolly Down from Dover. It's a story about, a woman who has a miscarriage. Like, that is such a rich, like, and just, a thing that traditional country music has always done is tell stories and be real and talk about real life. And that's what I want to do. So um, I think it is a really, it feels very validating to um, be having the critical success too as well. And, I'm really proud of that.
Yeah. Um, you mentioned all these, I guess, like, like serious topics. I guess, like,
Yeah.
um, I can't remember how long ago it was. It doesn't really matter. But I had, uh, I guess, a series of tweets where I was talking about how I had been listening to a lot of 90s country and 80s country. And I had been, I
Uh-huh.
guess, like, where it really came from was I was putting together these playlists of, like, every top 10 hit of the, every song that became a top 10 hit on Billboard on the U.S. country charts for those
Interesting.
decades.
Cool.
And I guess, like, what one of the things that I got out of that was just how a lot of country music back then had it was for adults. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The pendulum, I feel, has, like, and it's obviously, like, there's always going to be songs that are more fun or more geared towards college life, but
Mm-hmm.
it felt like there for a while there was fewer, like, adult subjects. You mentioned, like,
Uh-huh.
the Red Ragtop and uh,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, like, the Alan Jackson song, and I don't know. I feel like it's it's um, it's great in my opinion that there's a lot more. Um, I guess I hate to say, like, serious material, but, like, stuff about, like, real life situations
Right.
once you're out of college or out of high school or whatever.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even like Martina McBride, she was another one we were talking about. Like, even like Concrete Angel,
Mm-hmm.
that was a hit. I remember that was about child abuse.
Or
Or
Independence
Independence
Day.
Day.
Yeah.
And like that was about domestic abuse. And I didn't even, I mean, growing up, like first hearing that song, I wasn't even old enough to realize that that's kind of what it was about.
Mm-hmm.
That song just feels so big and, you know, um, but yeah, I mean, and it doesn't all have to be serious. And I'm not
Right.
like,
Yeah.
and I like to listen. I probably watch movies sometimes like people listen to music. Like I'm just tired and want something that I can just like junk my brain on.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, like the music, I kind of want to say something, if I have the platform, to say something like, the stories I'm seeing or the stories I'm hearing or, but I'm sure I have my beer drinking songs too.
Yeah. Like, the thing is that um, I guess, like, at some point I just kind of realized um, one, like, the entire argument is just exhausting if that's all you're focused on,
Totally.
and then two is like um, like, we're not like other people who are like, there's parents out there who have, like, taken their kids to soccer practice and have, like, actual, like, and I don't want to say, like, actual jobs, but, like, regular 9 to 5s, and they have to get dinner and they have to do all this stuff, help with homework, and they just don't have as much time to dive in on these, like, deep cut records, and
Yeah.
because for all intents and purposes, I've got like a lot of time to do that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
the average person isn't really doing that. It's radio and it's the news and your favorite reality show, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
you mentioned like how you listen to a lot of other stuff outside of country. I was gonna ask, like, are you like a Haim fan?
So I haven't really listened to
Okay.
them much.
There's-
It's funny because someone else brought them up to me the other day too. I need to go get turned on to that.
There's like one song in particular that I think it's Dream Girl that has kind of like a lot of the same tones that they kind of work in, and like there's
Very cool.
There's like a lot of since I guess with them, since they're three sisters, they have like just these incredible harmony parts, and that song in particular always that has reminded me of Haim a whole lot, and the
very cool.
I guess like the Fleetwood Mac aspects of their songwriting.
Yeah. We I wrote that song with Dustin Christensen, who's very I mean this in a great way. He is very 80s, with his style. And we wrote that song. And then when we took it into the studio, we were like, all right, channel Fleetwood Mac, Cyndi Lauper, girls just want to have fun vibes. And so Rob McNally was playing guitar on that. And then he came up with that kind of sig lick thing. And it just felt so 80s and fun,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely love that kind of stuff. Like I feel like my parents, my mom was like just, huge into 80s pop music and stuff like that. And I just never really appreciated it until later. And then I was like, I guess like one of the artists who actually kind of got me into more of the 80s stuff was the War on Drugs. Cause like so much of their stuff has like,
I love them.
The Dire Straits aspects of like those guitar tones and, people like that, even like Bob Dylan 80s is interesting. So, now this is one of those things that I've been wanting to ask you about, because I feel like this is one of those, I feel like either I'm like spot on or like absolutely way off. And, cause like I've thought about this too with, there was a Taylor Swift song that she just recently put out on that last record that I felt like, is there some of that too? I guess it was a song, Me. So All of the Cool Girls, is that like in reference to like Gone Girl and like that entire the Cool Girl monologue or anything like that?
What's the Cool Girl monologue?
Okay, so like have you watched Gone Girl before?
I think I read the book. Is Gone Girl about the girl
who like fakes her own murder and like kind of puts it up?
I read that book.
Okay.
Yeah, I read the book. I don't think I've seen the movie.
Okay, you need to watch the movie. It's really great too. But so like the Gone Girl monologue thing is kind of like how, so she obviously realizes that her husband has been cheating on her, and her whole thing is like, I was a cool girl. I put up with all your shit. I watched the baseball games and I got interested in all your stuff, and I was cool. I was a cool girl, and you bragged to your friends about how cool I was and yada, 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 all that kind of stuff. And I was just, I didn't know if like that was any kind of inspiration or anything like that.
It wasn't, but that is exactly like what we were tapping into, I think. So I'm just going to start saying that now, because people ask about that song and that's a way cooler story.
Okay. Yeah. Well, take that story.
Yes.
Like I said, like in the Taylor Swift song, she mentioned something about cool chicks, and I thought maybe it was like, I was wondering, obviously I don't have Taylor Swift's number or nothing, so I've not been able to ask her, but I was wondering if like it was originally like Cool Girl, and then she was like, let's change it to Chicks because the Dixie Chicks is going to be on this record or something.
That's cool. I did see she had some, subtle hints at Dixie Chicks in that song, I think. That you could be right about that.
This episode is sponsored by Wicker's Mesquite Smoked Jalapeno Jelly. It's owned and operated by my buddy Wes Wicker, who makes the jelly in small batches for the best quality and freshness. He smokes the peppers with mesquite and uses pure cane sugar to make the jelly.
What you get is this great blend of smoky, sweet, and spicy. It's addictively savory. For those uninitiated, Whickers is a great addition to any chef's kitchen. Part of what makes Whickers so great is just how versatile it really is. For starters, it makes a great meat glaze. Throw it on a batch of hot wings, use it on some pork ribs, some pork chops, really whatever you can think of. Eat it on biscuits, cornbread, bagels, or toast. Throw it on a ham or turkey sandwich. Another super simple but effective way is to get some cream cheese, throw some Whickers on top, and then grab your favorite cracker. Whickers is currently stocked at a handful of places in Lubbock and on the South Plains, as well as some Fort Worth and DFW locations. But the easiest way to get your hands on a jar is to head over to wickerstx.com. That's WICKERSTX.com. I'll throw a link into the show notes for good measure. They currently come in 2 varieties, original and now hot, if you need just a little bit more kick in your bite. You can order anything from 1 jar to a case of 12, whatever fits your needs. Again, that's wickerstx.com. Okay, back to the show.
Speaking of Dixie Chicks, I guess it was maybe yesterday, you had talked about how Brandy Clark had tagged you into a 10 record thing.
Yeah.
And the first record I guess you put up there was Home by Dixie Chicks. How obsessed were you with that record?
I was so obsessed. I think I wrote on the post, I was so obsessed with that record. I listened to it so much that my high school boyfriends had it memorized. Mm-hmm. I remember them being like, I'm probably the only dude that knows every word on this record. But I listened to it all the time. I was, I'd been obsessed with the Dixie Chicks for a long, long time, but that record was so different. I felt like it was just so raw. And I mean, that's their bluegrass record. They didn't have a label at the time, so they kind of took whatever creative liberties they wanted with that record. And I mean, Top of the World is on that record, so that was the first time I ever figured out who Patty Griffin was. And I remember just being so awestruck at how she was telling the perspective of an old man,
right?
Who was speaking as an old man. I was like, that was the first time I'd ever, the light bulb went off where it's oh, so you don't actually have to be yourself when you're writing songs. You can be tapping into other people and telling other perspectives. And yeah, I mean, I wore that record out top to bottom. That is the record that was always in the CD player in my car in high school.
Yeah. They just those 4 records, once Natalie had joined, those 4 records, I don't know if there's a better smaller batch of records for a catalog, it's just because they're so diverse. Obviously, that last record they did was it was just I don't want to say complete 180, but it was in a lot of ways a 180 from that bluegrass record, and it just had its own distinct sound,
Yeah, it really is cool. It's cool that they're able to reinvent themselves like that, and as a band too, because it's not just one person who has to be on board with the reinvention. It's 3 people who have to feel comfortable with it, and
right.
I feel like that's a pretty cool thing to be able to pull off. Yeah, I think they're great. I love them so much.
What was your thoughts on the latest single, Gaslighter?
I only listened to it once. I remember I was in the middle. It was a very stressful day of life on the road, and I listened to it once, before I had to get back to, van duties. But I liked it. I mean, it's so different, and I'm excited to hear the record when it comes out and kind of hear it in its entirety. It's always so hard, to just work off one single, but I liked it. It was great to hear them again.
Yeah. It's weird because, I always love to hear the context of where that song falls in a record and all that kind of stuff. But, we're in that age of where, and I guess the Dixie Chicks really don't have to do this, but where, by the time a record comes out, there's been 6 singles off the record, I guess like they probably don't have to do that. They just put one song out. If they put the record out tomorrow or today, I guess for the Friday, people would just
Well, to Beyonce, that would be pretty epic, though.
Yeah, they I guess they postponed the release of that of Gaslighter though. So.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, okay. Speaking of Beyonce though, what did you think of like their collab of like what song did they do off the Beyonce record? They did,
man, what did they do? Did they do?
I feel like I'm gonna be off. It's like,
it wasn't Single Ladies, was it?
No, it was like I don't want to say the wrong thing, so I'm not gonna say it until I look it up.
I remember seeing it. I totally remember like seeing it, and now I'm blanking on what was that song? Crap, I can't remember. Oh, Girls? Was it Girls? Because that was like an.
Oh, Daddy Lessons.
TMA. Okay.
Yeah. That song right there, I think a lot of Beyonce's so polarizing. I think she's great, but like, in my opinion, Daddy Lessons just kind of shows that she can do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
Because
she's untouchable.
It's not the quote unquote pop song. It's in a lot of ways like it is like a country song. So yeah. So I don't know. I feel like I'm getting off subject here with Beyonce, but let's see here. I was gonna ask you about like Living the Dream. That song, obviously, it closes the record. It has those aspects of the dream not being necessarily great, and you're very, I guess like it's a gut puncher. It's like a dose of reality in a lot of ways. Where were you, I guess, like when you started writing that song, and how did that start forming for you?
So that was, I wrote that song, I think in February of 2017. I was up in Boston with Lori. That was the moment. Writing that song was when, I think we were even 2/3 of the way finished recording the record at that point. But I went up and had that session with her, and we wrote that song. And I called Jake after, and I was like, okay, I just wrote this song with Lori. It's the concept of the record. We have to call the record The Dream. It was this song where it was taking, all these things that people associate with, man, hey, you're living the dream, and it was saying, it was kind of throwing that out the window a little bit and being like, the paycheck, the tour bus, those things that you think are like the dream, the apartment in New York City, like, the dream is what happens when we're busy living the dream, is the life that happens when we're busy living those, chasing those things. And so, yeah, when we wrote that, I just knew that was what I was trying to say with the record, was make sure when you are chasing the dream or chasing those things that people associate with living the dream, make sure like you're paying attention to the life that you're living outside of that.
Yeah. Like that second verse in particular, like I feel so sad for, like you sing in that song. Cause it's like that.
Yeah.
It's such great imagery though. The whole cigarette out the window, car window, and all that stuff. It feels like that's just I think we've all kind of been there,
Yeah.
One of the things I was also going to ask you about is you really have these like really clever choruses and hooks and stuff like that. Like that, obviously like the Dream Girl in the Heartland, stuff like that. Is that easy for you, or do you feel like you've slowly kind of like found the knack for that kind of thing?
That's something, I think that's kind of like, I think that's just something that, I don't know if it's a phase, but now it's almost like what I'm kind of like looking for is the way to like cleverly twist that to mean something else,
Right.
I feel like it's almost like the modern country hook, like whenever people talk about like the country hook, now it's kind of like, that's it, is like finding ways to kind of twist, a set of words or something. I don't know. I think that's something that is not necessarily for every song, but when you have kind of a clever word like that where you can kind of do a different play on words, then it makes sense to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Obviously, okay, I'm looking at the track listing, and I don't know why I didn't think about this earlier, but you do kind of have like a song that has like the character as the personified, and it's the Faker.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Dang.
yeah, there you go.
Awesome.
I was gonna ask you about that song too, because you co-wrote it with Hillary and Waylon Payne, who Waylon Payne I just feel is like one of those unheralded
Yeah.
songwriters who just I'm the whatever meme you want to insert about like just the waiting for his next record.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
What
He's great.
have you heard any of it or anything like that?
I actually haven't heard it, which is so weird. I mean, we write at the same publishing company, and I think I told him in the kitchen the other day, I was like, I need to hear your record. Waylon, you never know where Waylon is or what he's doing, but I know he's very excited about it.
Yeah.
So I'm such a Waylon Payne fan too. So I'm just eagerly anticipating hearing that record.
Mm-hmm. How I guess for you what is your I guess your I know or songwriting in general is just so different, but do you kind of fall into a routine? Are you do you like to have a certain kind of notebook, or are you more on the computer, or are you more of a note, a recording kind of person? What is the stuff that you want to have right before you're starting to write a song?
So I guess recently with Zoom, everything's on the computer. I go and light some incense or Palo Santo or something, try and get some vibes going. I got my Christmas lights going. That's quarantine co-writing. On a normal, non-pandemic week of co-writes, I feel like if I'm co-writing, I'm probably on a computer. Just for convenience's sake, it's just quicker, it's easier. If I'm writing by myself, I really like to just put pen to paper. It feels good to be writing. It just kind of depends.
Mm-hmm. I always feel like when I'm writing an article, if I have a hard time doing something, just stepping away and actually writing it pen to pad helps so much more, because it feels
it totally does.
It feels like you're actually kind of more doing something,
Right. I agree.
It's I don't know. There's something about that. I don't know. It's also kind of like I would kind of almost describe it as the way whenever if you're listening to a record, it makes it feel more like an event than if you're clicking on Spotify or something.
I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I've gone through most of my talking points here. I mean, it's been really, really great talking with you on
yeah, you too.
Okay, guys, thank you for listening to New Slang. Thank you to Hailey. As a reminder, go listen to The Dream. Be sure to check out our sponsors on this episode, the Blue Light Live and Tom's Daiquiri here in Lubbock, and Wicker's Mesquite Smoked Jalapeno Jelly. And of course, be ready for Monday Night Lights, a Blue Light songwriter compilation where all the proceeds go to helping Blue Light staff.